They know that we don't like those.
Oh.
That's good.
I think we're on it.
I think we are too. But it could just be us. And
No, it says there's 6 people.
oh no. Hi, 6 people. Supposedly they can chat with us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're waiting on here right now, feel free to chat something. Let us know where you're from. Questions you have right off the bat. Oh, people are disappearing. I scared them away.
You scared them.
But otherwise, we'll wait a few minutes just to see if
We're up to 3.
if other people join in. So hold. Please hold.
Please hold. In the meantime, meet our office associate. Is his name backwards on there?
Well, yeah,
You can read it though. I could flip the image on the camera.
How do you do that?
I don't know. It can be done.
What do you think? We'll wait like 3 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, we'll wait 3 minutes for anyone who wants to join. Of course, people can catch it later, so we're not expecting some massive crowd.
Not at all.
And then we'll get started. We'll probably start off with our story of Autism Level Up, and then let anyone ask questions who wants to.
You're cracking me up. Okay.
I don't know. What's cracking you up?
You.
Why?
Because you're wordsing and I'm not. I did say you might sing.
I won't do that off the bat.
The new circle song?
Well, no, because that's going to be added to. Unacceptable.
What's happening? The kitchen sink is dripping. It could not be happening.
A fellow Rhode Islander is on. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Great.
They
Welcome.
exist.
Welcome. Yeah, it's a small world. We'd love to hear where anyone who's on is from. We're here in Rhode Island.
It is a sunny day. I'm
No, it's fine. He's fine. He's
He's-
not the
he's
star of the
fine.
show. He's not the star of the show.
Well, he kind of is.
All right, we're just waiting 1 more minute to see if to give people just a chance to jump on, and then we'll get started.
Hi, Michael.
New Hampshire.
We owe you an email.
Eastern Seaboard is representing.
Woohoo! Well, it is Eastern time, so
True. They have an advantage.
they do. Serious.
Texas.
Woohoo! That's early.
Spreading the love.
Level up.
All right. I think we should just start
Okay.
talking about some content, and we'll say up front that if anyone has any questions, comments, please feel free to write it in the chat. I will warn you that we're recording this live stream, and the chat will get recorded with it so that people can see any conversations that happen. So just important for you to know as you're chatting.
Is your
And
popping things in?
you know, if anyone is sharing any personal stories that they would rather not have recorded and on YouTube. So we thought we'd start with just the story of Autism Level Up, which I'm going to let Amy start with that, because I'm just going to let you start.
And then you're going to take over.
Yeah.
Because that's what usually happens. So we'll start with this. So you and I had been working together for a while.
Yes.
And it was April 3 years ago now. But we've been working together for a while, and we were kind of talking about April 2nd being.
And I should say we had been working together for a while because JÄcqûelyn went through an autistic burnout that JÄcqûelyn did not know was an autistic burnout. And it was where our first real working together was working through my own profile and challenges and environment around me and figuring out me. That was how it really started. I mean, we were in grad school together.
We were
but that was what really started us
collaborating,
creating tools and supports together.
I'm trying to think of that. It is. It is true. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we'd known each other for years. We started working together. It was April 2nd, and we were talking about Autism Awareness Day or Autism Acceptance Day or Autism Appreciation Day. And we were having this conversation. We were going back and forth, and like, really, which one should it be? Like, what's the right place? And JÄcqûelyn was very pragmatic about the whole thing.
Well, first I was beside myself, not besides. I was beside myself, and I was like, I can't figure it out because, there's autism awareness and autism appreciation and autism acceptance, and awareness is such a low bar, but some people actually really need true awareness, and like acceptance is still a really low bar because it's like, we'll tolerate you essentially.
You're here.
But also still something that people need. And appreciation, you could consider that a higher bar, but also it gets into that whole like puppies and unicorns and rainbows and everything is beautiful and sunshine and everything's a superpower, and it kind of marginalizes the whole disability aspect of it. It gets very fluffy, as I would say. And so even people who think that people who are doing that kind of appreciation aren't really helping very much. But like, there's room for some form of appreciation. And so it was just like a mess in my mind. It was like,
and we were cluster. And I was only contributing to the mess by adding words to it. I was wordsing at her. And so the overwhelm was starting to happen, and the words were coming out less frequently. So I decided to leave and walk the room and walk into another office. And when I say walk in another office, I'm talking like maybe 15 feet through an open doorway. I was very clearly still visible. And that's when I got a text, which is primarily how we communicate. Most people are used to seeing us talk and chat with each other and be goofy. But when we're in the office together, a lot of our conversations actually done through texting because that's preferable to you. So I'm 15 feet through the door. She can clearly see me. And instead of calling my name or just blurting out what she's thinking, she texts me.
And I said, I've got it. It was a eureka moment for me. I said, it's Autism Level Up Day. Wherever you are, take the next step, because there are truly people at every step of that journey. There are people who need actual, real awareness. There are people who need to accept what autism really is and start to embrace it. There are people who are ready to actually appreciate it based on having good knowledge, quality knowledge, and real awareness about what it is. And there are others who are ready to move more into an advocacy standpoint. And so we want to meet anyone where they are and help them to level up, to take the next step, because that's what's going to benefit autistic people, neurodivergent people, society in general. So that is where the whole idea of leveling up came from.
And it really was. It was like very quickly created a graphic, kind of put it out, and just you wrote a blog post about it. And then as we were just really formalizing working together, we were trying to come up with a name to represent what it is we do, which we're not quite sure what we do. We do a lot of things. And you were like, we should just use the concept. Like it should be
Autism Level Up.
Yeah. And I was like, but it's yours. And you were like, no. Yeah, no.
It's not. It's ours.
So yeah, I mean, that's really the story. And I think the other part about it is these levels that we have are also important. And we can straddle levels. We can be working at different levels on different parts of our understanding. We can take steps back and then move forward. And so it looks like a linear path, but it's really not. And actually, I remember when we first did the first graphic, and some of you have probably seen it, it's kind of this arrow that has the Yeah. The trend arrow actually has some zigzagging in it. And people were originally kind of put off by that. And we're like, oh my gosh, this step should be above this step and you're showing it going backwards. But that's part of it. Part of it is being able to sit and reflect, take a step back, and then move forward to make sure that you're really, really well grounded in it. So,
yeah, that's a good point. I just want to say welcome to people who are joining still. We have North Carolina, and I don't think we said Westboro, Massachusetts, but
hi, Janine.
Westboro, Massachusetts is good. I think I have family there. I think. Vancouver, British Columbia. Woo. See, leveling up all over the world.
British Columbia. It's early in the morning there.
Is it? Oh, it's the West. It's not early.
It's 9.
So yeah, I don't know what we should talk about now. I think we please, if you have any questions about us, about Level Up, about what you're doing, troubleshooting, we'll take any questions. Just please protect identity of anyone that you might be talking about if you're troubleshooting. But in the meantime, we also want to introduce a few members of the Autism Level Up team.
Some of them are going to be more readily accessible than others.
That's okay. The first one we'll introduce here is BC Babe. He's a new Level Up concept who will likely be making more appearances on the website. He is my Century Bob boxing buddy, but he's also BC Babe, and he's going to serve as an example of, how not to write goals, how not to go about supporting someone. Yeah, he is alarming. We'll probably move him out of the frame after we introduce him because he's a troublemaker too. He's unpredictable. Which is a big problem for me. So you might see little memes of BC Babe doing things that he might think are appropriate and positive and helpful, and we might show how they're not and how they can be leveled up to actually be supportive. So we will move
BC Babe.
Oh, I'm reversing the camera. We will move him out of the frame because he is alarming. We just wanted to let you know that he could be showing up on the Facebook page and such in the near future.
And he's a very good regulation tool for you.
He is a regulation tool of mine. He doesn't understand how that works yet, but we're trying.
You're beating it into him, literally.
Yeah.
That's not working.
He does look unflexible. Yeah. He doesn't budge at all.
Here, we'll take his name tag off. You should hit him so they can see what he does when you hit him. Like how he doesn't move. Like he's inflexible. Like he's not. Yeah.
Doesn't budge.
All right. We have removed his name.
I'll move him when you're word saying at some point.
When I'm word saying.
Someone has written and talk about all the places we could donate all the feels cards. I'm thinking local police. Oh, we should just have a whole nother live session to have ideas about where the feels cards should go. So for anyone who doesn't know, we have a both print and electronic and app support. It's our one paid support called All the Feels, and they're essentially a set of tools and visuals to communicate difference, discomfort, pain in the body. I am someone who does not feel pain, though I am very aware when something is different in my body. And so these visual cards, we kind of got the idea from, I was thinking about cartoons and, something that is really explicit, like when like Batman slaps someone, there's a pow, there's a bang right there. And so even just that visual cue of like those expanding, colorful, sharp blobs around the pow, they communicate something very explicit to me that something is happening there. Mm-hmm. And so that is like the early conceptualization of the feels. I'll get the pack of cards.
You're going to move Bob.
I'm going to move Bob away.
Bye, Bob. So what happened, and you can imagine, is oftentimes we get questions around how do we help somebody express pain, especially if they're not communicating symbolically. How do I know what's happening in my loved one's body? Like, and then we have autistic people who are talking about the difficulty connecting and communicating with medical providers. So we do what we always do. And so I had been at a conference actually in Colorado, and you weren't with me then.
Right.
And I came back and I said, okay, here's this question. It keeps coming back. We've got to figure out what to do with this. And then we were driving to Long Island, and you're like, cartoons.
And so we've really expanded on the BAM and POW stuff. So you can see like Fizz right here.
I love Flame.
Flame is a favorite. Creepy Crawly, that's a great one. Blub Blub.
That was one of the first ones because that's your stomach often.
Yeah. Often I'm like Blub Blub. So the other great part of the cards is to the concrete nature of being able to like I just have to hold this up to myself. I don't need to be able to say anything. I can just hold it where it is happening too.
So we should say, so JÄcqûelyn had the initial idea, and then we were really fortunate to get paired up with Ra Vashtar, who's done all of our art, who is an autistic artist, and then several other autistic people in the community kind of weighed in and helped come up with the initial deck of the feels, which is what you have in your hand, and just being able to field test those over and over before we release them into the world. And what we found is we thought they were really versatile when we printed them. And as JÄcqûelyn said, it is our one product because we do continue to pay raw royalties, and there are printing costs associated with it. We can't give it away because it costs us money to produce it. And the app as well. So we've got that, and they can hold those feels up to themselves as well. But what we found is the number of stories that we get, like on I wouldn't say a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, of people who are using them and sending them back and using them in really different and creative ways. And one of the places that we hear the most about is people who are using it to support individuals with mental health as well as physical health. So Ra is actually working on a whole nother kind of expansion pack that has a lot of feels that people's clients or themselves have submitted that they feel kind of reflect other states that this pack might not have in it. So we're super excited to get those out and into people's hands. But then we also have people using it just in sessions and helping people explore more kind of interoceptive things. So yesterday there was I don't know who's on from Texas, but there was somebody from Texas yesterday who emailed us and said, I was using this in a therapy session with a client who's never been able to tell me anything about how they experience any of the activities we do. And they had the app and they just opened it, and the child was able to scroll through and pick based on different activities, different feels that went with those activities for them. And it opened up this whole line of communication that had never been there before. So like we get so excited when we hear these stories because people are using it creatively outside of the way that it was intended. But then people are also using it when they go to medical providers and to access healthcare and things. Yeah. Which is what our original thought was.
I used it too. I mean, I use it normally.
Yeah, we use it all the time
because it just resonates with how I experience things in my body. It's biased by my own experience in my body, but also I had long COVID for 19 months and counting or something. And you might read stories about long COVID where people will just say like, I don't even know how to explain what I feel in my body. Like it's like my rib cage and my chest has a cell phone in it just vibrating. I'm just buzzing. It's like nothing I've ever felt before. And so, going to my doctor and healthcare providers and the ER through all of that, these are the words that I use to describe what was going on for me and continue to use in that sense as well. So I think they have, back to the original question, I think they have a huge range of places. I mean, we want to make posters for, school nurses' office. We want to make posters for doctors' offices, for emergency rooms. I think the police is a great idea. I think, EMTs, dentists, gynecologists. That's a That's a fun one. Like they need to be places, because I think anywhere you see a traditional pain scale, which is, I think, lacking in information for anyone, neurodivergence aside, like a number doesn't give you as much information as like flame in my throat. I think that they should be right next to that pain scale, anywhere there is one of those. And we're currently trying to think about where we can market it. We're not the best marketers.
We're not good at it.
But we do, in the fall, we're going to Brown University's medical school to introduce it as an innovative tool for patients. We should probably do outreach to schools. We should probably do outreach to more hospitals in the state, and not just in our own state, but elsewhere. And I think some people were saying they want to donate sets, and we'll have to figure out a way to set that up if people truly wanted to donate sets somewhere, like purchase them and say, I want these sent to this school or this neighborhood or this community center.
Well, our website's in redesign. So.
Yes. I am currently doing the redesign of our website, because I also did our app.
Yeah.
I totally
multifaceted that way.
I totally special interested out and taught myself coding, and
why not
made a whole app. So now it's a passion of mine to do that kind of work. And on our website, I think it would be a great place to have some kind of forum to set up a system like that. And people are saying they'd take it to the police themselves. The poster is a great idea.
So I will say, do you have the pad down here, JÄcqûelyn?
I think so. I don't know.
So we've got, we have an 8.5 by 11 sheet pad with the feels on them that we printed, and we printed them largely to leave with doctors so that they can rip off a sheet and give it to a client, and then, come back and ask somebody how they're feeling, to give them a moment to reflect and think. That's the non-tear sheet.
This is the non-tear indestructible page, which is pretty amazing. You can't rip it. It's perfect, because especially when you're in distress and overwhelmed, that can be key. But this is the pad.
Yeah. Well, we have both of these things, and the reason I'm bringing these up now is you and I have. We have our printer distributes them. And so that's why when people buy them, they go directly from the printer, and we don't interface with that at all. But we get so excited when people send stories about them using them. But these pads and these non-tear sheets, we do have a stock of, because this is what we want to use to give to people and get it. So anytime JÄcqûelyn or I go to a doctor, we take it with us. Anytime that we're going into a school, we take it with us, and we leave it because we want people to start to use it. The feels are they're smaller on here, so scanning isn't.
But if it was the poster.
Right. But my point, and what I'm going to say, is if anybody on here emails us, we'll send you a pad. If you want to
be like a feels rep, we'll hook you up.
Because we need help.
Yeah.
But if you just want a pad,
do you mind if I put your email address in the chat?
No, go for it.
Okay.
If you email us, we'll send it, because again, I think it's been really powerful, even as we've gone to some of your doctor's appointments and we've taken this in with us. It's so ingrained for a doctor to start with pain. Where do you feel? And then
even when we tell them that I don't experience it.
Right. And then
it's just their script.
Right. But then to get this visual out and remind them this is the playing field. This is where we're working right now. It's been really powerful, and we've seen your doctors be able to kind of flip their language to be able to interact with you in ways that are more validating for your experience. So again, if anybody could use a pad and use it just to share, I've been taking them and dropping them at pediatricians. I'm like, just hang this next to the pain scale.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think we answered that question.
I don't know.
So anyway, we're working on spreading it around. And also, one of the most helpful things is that if you have an experience where you've seen it be successful in some environment, also please email us to let us know, Facebook us to let us know, because that also helps us understand where to do outreach, where to spend our time outreaching and present on them and such like that.
Right. And I think you and I were going back and forth yesterday because, again, like I said, it's not every day, but it's multiple times a week. We get these stories. And I was like, there's probably an article in there or something because we just have all these lived experiences now. And you texted back, as you always do, and said, article fine, but I'd rather do something like an infographic or a presentation where we can really reach the people who need to use them.
Right.
And so anytime we can get that kind of information to give back so that we're making sure that people who have access have ideas of how they can be implemented. Not that people aren't being very creative in their implementation. They certainly are.
And I think one of the most important and telling things about this, one of the most validating things is we often will get questions from like OTs and teachers and educational staff and others who are like, parents, like, how do I introduce these to someone? How do I go about starting this process with someone? And we kind of just say, just put them out. Just try it. Just see what happens. But what happens is it's so natural for the person that there's no real introduction needed. And so we also get all these other stories of like, I just opened the app, or I just put out the deck of cards and it was like they took right to them. So I think that's a good measure of its fit for a neurodivergent population, because this has been used with more than just autistic people. And I'm just thinking and the mental health community as well.
I'm thinking about we've gotten several stories of people who are like, I just got them out, and before I could even do it, somebody went through the card and pulled out cards and pulled out the something's different card, and then found the basics need card, and they were hungry, and just to be able to use it in that way, but without, and so it always kind of cracks me up because we have this manual that goes with it.
We do.
It has a lot of words in it. I wrote a lot of words.
She words.
I'm like, I'm so glad I did that, because really this is we probably need.
And there are solid suggestions of, possible ways to like get someone familiar with it or get someone talking about them. But in general, we find that the introduction is pretty easy.
But if people do want the background and understanding pain in neurodivergence, and they want to understand kind of the story of how it came about, the manual's useful for other things, but in terms of utility, like just getting them out is often the best.
Yes. So maybe we should, I don't know what else we want to talk about now. I don't think that I've missed a question, but please re-ask if I have.
There was somebody who asked on the Facebook feed before we started, and I don't know if they're on or if they're going to try to come back and catch this later.
Okay.
And they were asking a question about masking. And I said, it's a really difficult question, but a good one to discuss. Like that was my reaction in my head, because it was basically, they were talking about their daughter and if how could they support this young person's engagement while they were probably masking, but knowing they still wanted to continue engaging, and how could, like, this kind of back and forth of like, how do I know if they really want to do the thing and they're masking so they can do it, or they don't want to do the thing and they're just masking to get through it. And it's a really complicated question to think about, but I thought maybe we could just spend a little bit of time talking about masking in general, knowing that as much as unmasked as you are.
Yes, I am fully unmasked right now. I'm sorry. Also, I will apologize. Like the past week or two, I've just randomly been slipping into French accents, and I can't control when it happens. So I'm just gonna warn you.
But it's like a French chef. Like
it's really pronounced. It's not even really French. It's like a
I don't even know what it is.
A disaster French accent. I don't know. So if it happens, I apologize, because
Ratatouille. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, it's really over the top.
Yeah.
Anyway, masking.
Yeah. So go ahead. And then
I think it's complicated. Yes, I am so unmasked right now. That's what I was trying to say before I thought of my French accent. But there was a time when I was extremely, extremely masked. And
grad school.
Yeah. Pretty well, yes, grad school, but then especially really ramped up when I went into my first full-time job.
Yep.
I would say that, yes, there was some masking in grad school, but also it was a very easy environment to not have to mask all the time because it's pretty much a place where everyone just has to focus on one special interest, and we only come together to discuss those things.
Lab was a lot of fun.
And your job, if you have like a graduate assistantship, it's limited to 20 hours, and there were a lot of protective things in place there. So it's not like I was not masking 100% of the time, but there was also definitely room and space. And I still think, even though you say I'm the best masker you've ever known, like, you would probably also say that I was fascinating in grad school.
We had a lot of fun.
Different than others.
Yeah, well, yes. So when I say you're the best masker, meaning that you were always so even keel, always so level,
even when
always up for anything.
I was very
JÄcqûelyn,
stoic.
I need.
I was stoic. And even when I
but
passed,
pleasantly so.
Yeah, when I
not
passed,
BC Babé stoic.
No, when I passed my comprehensive exams, I remember like two of the younger students like, "You're so calm. Like, I would never know you just passed your comprehensive exams." And I was like, "Yeah." Like, everything was just a little repressed about me.
Everything.
Yes.
But that's super even keel and just like up for
I would always let everyone else lead.
Yeah.
Always. I would never make a decisive call on something. I could go along and flow with anything. And it was, like I said, at that time, it was just the case that I had enough downtime and enough time away from it and enough time on my own where it wasn't fatiguing me to an absolute breakdown. Yeah. Until my full-time job.
And I think that's critical because there were aspects of grad school and even in our work together in grad school where like we did home visits and she was one of my assistants who would go with me and film. And I would be like, "Oh my gosh, this parent says we can do it like tomorrow at 11. And you'd be like, "Sure." Okay, I now know to never ask for something within 24 hours ever.
The only time I think that I actually was in overwhelm though, and it actually came out like I couldn't mask through it, was when we were driving and her gas tank went to empty and we were lost. And I was like, I think the direction sent us the wrong way. Yeah.
From the gas station.
But in terms of like the doing things last minute, I could roll with it. Well, I could pretend
to roll with it.
So anyway, then when I got into my full-time job, first of all, I had never been in like an office experience in my life. Never in my life have I experienced so much FaceTime. And I remember it, like people would come up to me and say things like, they just stop by my door and be like,
"Nice day out there.
Hey, that engineering building's going up really fast, huh?" And I'd be like, and then they'd be like, "Yeah, I have to go grocery shopping. My family was in town and they ate everything." And I'd be like, "Do you want money?" Like all of this small talk, but on top of the fact that like there were meetings, everything was unpredictable. It was a completely new experience for me. And I had no idea of what a job was supposed to be like. I just had in my mind that it was a 9 to 5. So I would just sit in my office from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. No matter if I was finished with my work and meetings for the day or not, I would just like sit there and hope that no one came to the door to spew nothingness at me that I didn't know how to respond to. I would be before work, I would shower for like 45 minutes to an hour and a half, just trying to rehearse what I could potentially say when all these things came at me. Nothing about the actual job itself. I could do the actual job itself in far less time than the full-time job, which was part of the problem with the whole 9-to-5 thing. I'd be like, I don't know what to do. But about just the social element of it. And so I was coming, I mean, we're laughing about it now, but at the time it was like every meeting I went into, I was susceptible to flipping the table over and just getting home or just getting into my car before I was breaking something, kicking through walls. I broke several things in my car on the dashboard from just like exploding, or I was like melting down. No, that's the meltdown. Or I was shutting down when I would get into my home and sleep. I'd sleep for like 26 hours at a time. Just so much exhaustion, could not keep up with it at that point. So it only took 2 weeks to get to that point. But it took 6 months? No, 5 months?
July, August, September, October, November, at least 5.
At least 5 months for me to reach out to Amy via a text message, which was a picture of a hole that I kicked through my door. And the text message was, LOL, I did this. And that's it. And I like don't ask anyone for help. It's not even like a thought process that occurs in my mind until apparently my most desperate hour. And even then, when I'm like, how do I do this? That's how it came out. I put LOL after like every sentence I write.
It's like textoralia.
Yeah. So
it is.
That's
every sentence.
That is what masking did to me. Like that is how much when I was full-time, never in a break, always high anxiety masking, that is what put me into a burnout. And while the burnout was awful, and while no one should have to go through a burnout to discover their diagnosis, that is how I discovered my diagnosis. And because I had such a situational shift in my life at the time, like moving from, having done soccer my whole life and having a lot of freedom and being really well supported, to this environment I just didn't know how to navigate in any way. I think I was almost lucky in a sense, because it made very obvious to me what was the mask and what was not. It was still a long process. And I didn't have all these terms when I was going through it. I didn't say, oh, I'm coming home every day and melting down or shutting down. I had no idea what was going on. Didn't know if I was depressed, if I had anxiety, if I was suicidal. I would check in with myself every few days and be like, am I suicidal? And I just would always come back to, no, it's not that I want to die. I can't figure out how to live. And so this is a long answer, and there's probably been more questions that are coming in. I see the thing moving in my peripheral. But I guess the takeaway point, the reason I'm sharing my story is it's so complex. Masking is so complex. And part of why is for so long, you can have automatic pieces that are masking that don't bring you to all out fatigue, especially when you're younger. You just have more energy. Not that we want people to be doing it then, but you might not get to that point of burnout. And so it's complicated. It's hard to pull apart what is a mask and what is, the real person, and who am I really? And when you're talking about like a teenager or a child, like all teenagers and children are trying to figure out who they are and are developing. So what we really try to focus on is just when it becomes possible, we have to let that person lead as early as possible. We want people to understand their needs and what works for them as early as possible. And, even in that situation that you said, like, is she masking because she really wants to engage in it? Well, if that's the case, then we want to, we want to educate peers. We want to
Right.
change the environment and the activity too, so that not all the burden is on the autistic
Right.
person who's masking to get through it. Because that's not going to be an enjoyable activity anymore, even if they want to engage. So I spewed words.
You did. You wordsed a lot.
I'm going to catch up in the chat.
Wordsing is a verb around here. But I think you brought up a lot of key pieces. One is that the mask is a really complex thing. And it's really critical if I do find themselves in situations where they feel they need to do it because of protective factors or because there's lots of reasons that someone might engage in masking.
Someone in the chat even has said, I think I'm masking quite a bit at work, but it's so hard to feel comfortable enough to unmask. I have an advantage in my profile there because I have about 0 social motivation. So once I realized these are just made up rules that I had been trying to put in place because they're the only script I knew, it was really, I think for me, it was very relatively easy to be like, I don't care. And I should also say that I have really excellent coworkers. Just as an example, like one thing that would really get me is I'd be in these back-to-back meetings and they don't have agendas. But the meetings would start going on beyond the agenda. Like the agenda would finish and then people would just keep talking about maybe related things, maybe nothingness, maybe the Patriots. I don't know. I don't like the Patriots. And I would be like, it was supposed to be over. I thought I was going to have a break now and there's another meeting and overwhelm. And I used our person in context tool, the pick, to make a profile of myself and just handed them all the writing about me essentially and kind of inform them of that mismatch and my need for predictability. And so now every single meeting, whether it is, well, they've all been virtual, but even when it was in person, when it's virtual, they make an agenda now. And the last item on the agenda is walk-in items and story time. And that is my item to let me know that I can leave. I'm done. I'm dismissed. It is my cue. And everyone loves this accommodation, not just me, because some people are like, I've been saving up for walk-in items and story time. I can't wait for it. Here's all my stories. And other people are like, oh no, I don't have time for walk-in items, story time. Goodbye. So it's a great story because it just shows how simple an accommodation can be to be effective, and the fact that they often benefit more than just the autistic person. But to be fair, who knows? I don't know the environment you're in. I don't know, your situation. I don't know what intersecting identities you might have.
Right.
There are a whole degree of factors that can make it more or less difficult to take the mask off. It's a privilege to be able to unmask. It shouldn't be, but it is, unfortunately.
And I think, so the person in context tool is a really important tool when it comes to understanding, starting to tease out what is the mask versus what is the person, because it's where you can find those mismatches for you. Because if you say, I'm a person who has an extreme need for movement, and I'm literally trying to sit in an office chair, a static office chair from 9 to 5. I say this because when we were in grad school, I gave her my ball chair after I finished defending my dissertation. I'm like, time for you to do yours, sit on this. And she used it the whole way through until she got a real job. And then she put it to the side of the office and never sat on it again because professionals didn't sit on ball chairs. Okay. So
all I had was scripts, my friends.
Right. But that's the degree of the mask, right? Yeah. But then when you start to
the
look
mask
at
is so much like if X, then Y, unless A, B, or C, or G is present. But if E is there, then you can do Y, but not if C happens. But there's no understanding of why any of these things matter.
So, but
it's like a master equation.
But The pick can help figure out where there are mismatches, though, and where you might need accommodation or you might need support from somebody else. And I think that's a huge part of what we do in Level Up is, it's supporting the individual to understand themselves and the tools and strategies that they need and kind of scaffold that development. But it's also scaffolding development in the partners. And as you said, like what's the peer education? What's the education of the employers? Like you have a very receptive workplace who's taken this information and kind of run with it to the degree one of Steve will be like, am I using too many pronouns right now? He's great.
Well, he clearly did his own research on autism when I first disclosed my diagnosis to him, and like he'd start doing all these things and I would be like, what is he doing? But he means really well, and
he's great.
But remember in the beginning he would just do anything, and it was almost like unpredictable to me because it was so breaking from what he typically did. But he will always advocate for me, ask my needs. He's just someone who will accept that he doesn't have the knowledge about autism, and I feel like those are some of the best people to actually be able to work with, because you get to define what it is for you, and that's how it always should be. But some people who have ideas about it, again, we go back to all the levels and the real awareness, and Did I cut you off?
Well, no, it's fine. But I think this idea of the pick and figuring out maybe what tools and strategies and accommodations you need, like not sitting in a desk chair, but using a standing desk or a ball, those types of things are small bits of unmasking, but can be big steps in a work or school environment to do those things. So I don't want to say small as in like still don't take kind of courage and effort to do, but those kind of things can be really helpful from a preservation standpoint. But I think the other piece of it is, if you do find yourself in places where you do have to mask because you don't have the privilege of unmasking because of all the factors that JÄcqûelyn said, safety, making sure there's space outside of that environment so that you have the downtime to be as who you are, can be. And I think that's why grad school worked so well, is because you were so calm, cool, and collected through everything, but you had tons of time on your own away from other people.
Yeah.
So that when you got into that environment where you felt like you kind of had to put that persona on, you could use the energy to do that and then recharge when you got out of that space.
Right. Someone has added that the pick helps others take the person's perspective in a way that no other tool does. And I think that's a good point.
JÄcqûelyn's favorite tool.
And that's, we often also get the question, don't let me forget to go back to any suggestions on recovering from burnout. I'm just saying it.
Okay.
We also often get the question with any of these tools, like, what about people who can't contribute? They're too developmentally young.
They're not symbolic communicators yet.
Symbolic communicators, just don't have the reflective capacity yet. How do these tools work for them? And in that case, we have to be really careful observers. You can fill out something like a pick, something like a person profile for someone that you observe, hopefully in meetings with their family, with others who know them really well, in multiple environments, observing across multiple environments. But we always say, just get over the fact that you're going to make mistakes. You can't possibly perfectly nail someone else's profile. It would be almost impossible. But the thing that matters is not that you're going to make mistakes. The thing that matters is that you're always coming at it from a perspective of, I want to know what this is for you. I want to know what your physiological profile is. I want to know what your interoceptive profile is, what your communication style is. And I'm willing to correct when I get it wrong and update this as I learn more. And coming at it from that perspective, rather than, I'm going to show you what this has to look like. I'm going to show you what needs to happen when you are stressed. I'm going to show you what needs to happen when you feel some certain way. I'm going to tell you how to respond. That is that is not the way.
That is not the way.
That's not going to work. So be careful observers, be willing to make mistakes and update your knowledge. And if you're coming from that perspective of, I want to understand, rather than I'm going to show you what it needs to look like so that I know when XYZ, that's going to go so much further to build a trusting relationship and help the person to understand themselves, and lessen the likelihood of masking developing than the other way. So that's how we kind of approach tools for the early learners.
Burnout recovery.
Thank you.
No worries.
I started reading stuff in the chat again. Someone asked if we have suggestions on recovering from burnout. It's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think there's very little of it that is kind of in your control, especially to begin with. Space, time, solitude, nature.
It's a huge, yeah.
And I think there's also a piece of it, like for me, because it was so fatiguing and so draining, I ended up giving up some of the very things that are most effective to regulate me and for my mental health, like my amount of exercise and intensive exercise went down because I figured I'm exhausted, like I shouldn't be doing that, but actually it helped me as long as I didn't go over the top. It helped me de-stress. And I think also another huge thing with burnout is reading the stories of other people who have gone through burnout, like just knowing that this has happened to other people and there's like an other side to it. You do eventually come through it is really powerful. Using the time, to explore and experiment with what is actually fun and enjoyable to you is really powerful as well. And again, helps that knowledge and understanding. And I mean, there's so much, because while I said, am I depressed? Am I anxious? Could I have been diagnosed with those things? Probably in that time. And so there's probably mental health that has been damaged in it.
Right.
So it's complicated, but I can't overstate rest, recovery, taking away stimulation sometimes and adding in enjoyable stimulation as well. Just being really kind to yourself and patient, because it takes time. And it will depend on, how fast can you drop those most taxing pieces of the mask? How long were you carrying on with it? How intense did it get? There's a lot of factors.
And I think one of the other things that was very helpful for you, I'll just put myself right out there, but having somebody that you could access that could help you figure out how to navigate at different points. And so you, in that way, you were very privileged.
I was.
That her one trusted human friend going into the situation had knowledge that could be useful, although she didn't put those two things together ever. A whole different story for a different day. But I think, we talk about these things about, engaging in things that you really like, but you actually needed support to get yourself moving in that direction sometimes. Like it wasn't always the self-initiation, because the burnout's real. And so you'll often say that you're all about self-regulation, but at your lowest lows, you need mutual regulation. That's when you need somebody to help you. And so I think if people have somebody that they can tap into, it's wonderful. And if they don't have somebody that they can tap into, your perspective of the online community or even just reading other accounts is really important, because if you don't have that trusted one person that can help you, you can at least tap into information from others that could be helpful.
Yes. If not too personal, I'd be interested in hearing Jacquelyn's
Nothing's too
experience
personal.
getting a diagnosis as an adult woman. Women are so much less likely to be diagnosed, and masking is not taken into account. Yeah.
She was lucky again.
Again, that, yeah. And this shouldn't be the case. Like anytime we say, oh, I was lucky, I was privileged, it's like really a point where society has to change. But
Right.
You're absolutely right. It is harder for women and adults in general, but particularly women, to get a diagnosis. In this case, you thought about colleagues you knew, clinicians, or
because I'm not a diagnostician,
right?
So I mean, you had self-identified. I had validated your self-identified knowledge like for a while, and then it got to a point that we were just like, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
We know it's true, but do you want to do this? So then I have a huge network, obviously, of people that I've worked with over time. Jacquelyn was newer to the community, so she didn't have that same network at the time. And I kind of handpicked the person that I thought she should go talk to.
And the person that I did talk to, you have to find someone who is qualified to do it, but who also will just listen.
Yes.
And they did, do a full interview about my childhood and my current life. And
she took in her photo albums of like things in her mouth and never looking at the camera. It's a great photo album.
I had pictures from my youth. I had written out
stories,
like everything that I wanted to
that's a good
discuss, which is also
that's a really good strategy. And you give that to people oftentimes, like actually have people fill out their pick and take it with them. Or stories of childhood.
And write stories of their childhood, because once you get into the interview, of course, everything's a little more ampy, and then words might not come so easily. But it was clear that this person had read what we sent it beforehand.
You did.
Read what I had sent, asked specific questions about what I had written already. Bringing someone with you if you have a trusted person who can help you respond or remind you of certain things you wanted to bring up can also be really great.
He also had a therapy dog, Peanut Butter, who she had to pet the whole time.
I had a therapy dog on my lap the whole time. I mean, clearly I was very lucky. And so after he reviewed all my information, he wrote back to say that he thought that he wrote my diagnosis. And said that I would meet the criteria for autism. And I think I followed up with him once or twice just to talk through things. It's kind of funny because it's like you go through all this time and preparation and build up, and then it's just like a paper that has like a code on it.
And he's like, yeah, your stories seem valid. Awesome.
So, he's actually not in Rhode Island anymore. And our network in Rhode Island is kind of
shrinking,
diminishing, but we have a few people that we sometimes suggest, but of course with like insurance and coverage, it's hard to do things virtually. And I will say that he told me up front that I had like the best possible insurance for this process, and still out of pocket, it was hundreds. But that is also a fraction of what it can be. I didn't have to go through a whole neuro assessment for that. Some people do.
And I think, and you were really going in for a very specific reason. You wanted validation of the diagnosis, if indeed he agreed with you. And so, but he was very diligent and was asked a lot of questions about mental health and tried to follow up and make sure that you were taken care of in those ways too.
And one of the things I think he did too was think about that the mental health piece. Obviously he wants to rule out like other things, which can be a problem because people get misdiagnosed with mental health things, but he was very cautious about that as well. And that's another thing to look out for. I would say if you get some mental health diagnosis that you just don't feel covers everything you've experienced, then you probably already have the validation that you have an autism diagnosis. it's unfortunate. And we really have to work to level up that understanding as well. And I think it's shifting, but it's behind the times. It really is.
We're still in contact with this colleague of mine and now JÄcqûelyn's, and he says it's like a wave of women coming at him now.
Oh, yeah. Good.
I don't think you were on that last exchange.
No,
he was like,
he said it's a wave of women. Yeah. Waves of women, that's a good thing. Okay. Not too long ago, Tony Atwood used to say that autistic women could be more successful because they could imitate, and masking seemed like a sign of success. Yeah. No. It's a tough one because it's just so, I guess, picturesque of society. Like, right. If you break yourself to conform to this, you have a chance, which is such a disturbing notion. Yeah. I think we've also are moving past that in most domains, though some are still along those lines. I mean, again, another place where we have to level up.
Well, and it's one of the things. So some people might have seen one of our recent posts was on writing individualized goals and making sure that they were really affirming of who the individual was and supporting that individual kind of in their self-determination and things. And we've got to move in that direction. We've got to move away from these neuronormative standard pieces.
And someone said they have a 3-year-old who's diagnosed with autism and everything's so new to them. But they found our video on ABA, and it's very much to help guide their choices moving forward.
Yay! We thank you for your little.
Yes.
I think, this idea of helping autistic individuals grow into a positive autistic identity.
I have to say, because it's ingrained into me now, we have been on for an hour. It is 1:02.
Oh gosh.
Just in case you have to be somewhere, this is officially walk-in items and story time. Anyone is dismissed from this feed at any time they want.
Not that they couldn't have left anytime they want.
Right.
We were totally fine.
I have to say, just to be explicit.
But it's so important that as people who are trying to support development and help individuals kind of grow and become who they are, that we're really working very diligently to make sure that we're holding the person at the center and not holding some societal standard at the center. And so I think we've done 2 things around goals. We have parts 3 and 4 coming really soon. They're both in editing right now. Actually, 3 is pretty much done.
We can give them a preview.
4 is in editing. Of you.
Of the goals. Well, we can't give them a preview, but we'll say, keep an eye on Facebook because
it'll go there first.
Amy did a search of IEP goals or something like that. Help me write IEP goals.
It was, I think, IEP goals to reduce behavior.
Yeah, she did this
challenging
search.
Behavior, maybe.
Just something like someone could search if they were looking for ideas. And the first thing that came up was this.
Don't IEP alone.
Don't IEP alone. And it gives all these goals that can be just
they're templates.
They're templates. Enter someone's name in and put it in their IEP. And so we took
10. 8 of them. We took 8. There's this one document. It's only one of the documents. It had 37, and I just chopped out 8 of them
just for fun
and sent them
to me. And then I tried to write them for myself and
respond.
I responded to them. And so what we'll have coming are these generic, awful IEP goals. That
working for tokens.
The first Google hit if you search something like IEP goals. And what they look like right now, my reactions to them, and then how do we level these goals
I had to censor the reactions a little bit.
Yeah,
I got a couple of F-bombs out.
I got heated. But we have, we're going to show how we would think about actually making useful goals. Yeah. And
that's the part that's in editing.
Yeah, that will be coming out. So you can see yuck, old school, awful goals, and then goals that can actually
be helpful. And the key is, yes, we're doing it as using JÄcqûelyn as an example, but they're really relevant to your 3-year-old too, because JÄcqûelyn's profile hasn't changed. Yes, you've grown and matured and developed, but
Matured.
Oh, that's questionable. But your sensory profile is your sensory profile. Your communication profile is, yes, of course, it's gotten more sophisticated than when you were 3, but you are who you are. So these goals and objectives easily could have been written for her especially when she was in middle school or high school. Even though we could argue that they apply now because there are things around property destruction. She's already told you she destroys her condo has destroyed her condo. There's a reason BC Bobby is in the house. But so yes, we're writing it now for you as an adult, but they really could have been written for you as especially a middle school or high schooler. And so your reaction would have been the same. And you'll be able to see just the damaging nature of how goals are typically written versus what a truly affirming, scaffolding, developmental goal.
Yeah, and that actually
help,
support some kind of real world knowledge. Yes, so that's should be coming. Any suggestions on how to get a PDA child interested in using the Awesome Level Up tools? That's a tough one too. We've had a few families, people get in touch with us with a similar situation, essentially. And in general, our suggestion is always something like just start using it for yourself, like it's part of the household.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not one thing being forced on this one person in your home or one person in your class.
Right.
Like if you want to start using energy to talk about regulation, just start doing it naturally. Don't
for
make
yourself.
it for yourself, for your family, for your classroom. I don't know your situation.
Right.
Not that it is a special thing for this person to help them. Anything that would be given to me
right. No.
to do or to complete, because I had to complete it because someone else thought it was the best thing for me, automatically feels like that demand. And even if it's like a tool that is a perfect fit for what I need, it's not going to happen.
Nope.
But if it's part of the culture, essentially, I think there's a better chance of it being picked up. It really depends on the person and their situation. But I think for some people, when it's not a demand directly to them, it can be really helpful. And it's just like, this is how my family, this is how my classroom talks about this. That's cool. It's not about me completing some assignment or
exactly.
or extra homework. This. Right. Yeah. So give it a try. We'd love to hear how it goes. And
we've definitely had some success with that strategy.
Yeah. And let us know if it flops on Facebook or something.
Yeah. We're all about the flops. We're all about leveling up as well.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Well,
we've extended walk-in items and story time.
I know, and it's 1:08, and I guess we should wrap this up. So we'll give a final call for any last-minute questions, sure. And then we'll probably head out. Unfortunately, I have a call for my other job.
So do I.
Oh, you do too?
Yeah. Not together.
But we thank you all for being here. This was fun. And, let us know if you think we should do this again.
Or not.
Or if you think this was no fun at all. We'll take both. We'll take all the feedback.
All the feedback, all the feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Where can I find you guys other than YouTube? Oh. Well, we're on Facebook. So if you search Autism Level Up on Facebook, you'll find our page.
Yep.
And then we do have a website I'll put in here.
Which is under construction.
Well, it's not really under construction yet. Not by this.
Doesn't look like it's going to look someday.
It's fully functional right now, but it will be changing soon. Thanks for everyone who came.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
All right. Yep. Shutting down.
We're out.